Welcome to the White Lotus channel. Thanks for being here. Deck review. David Royale's UR Explosion. Now before we get into the deck, I found the deck on the McSlash Discord channel. Link will be in the description. It's 99 cents a month to join it, which isn't much. If 99 cents is a problem, you got bigger issues than magic. So check out the link. Usually, we will take a look at decks that have hit the tournament scene, maybe be a little bit different. But this was interesting. I talked to David about it, got his permission to run it, to run the video on the content. Now, let me say this. I'm very honest in my opinions. I don't care much what other people think about what I have to say. I just say what it is, and you're always going to get an honest assessment of something. And I can do it in different languages. I speak English, facts, and I talk money. So I'll say this. David Royale may be the hardest working man in the Pauper game today. So he's not just playing the same deck over and over and streaming leagues. It's not going to be just the same style. He's always brewing something different. This is what you get. If you're not a subscriber to his channel, I highly recommend you do it. He doesn't sponsor me. We're just friends. But I have a massive respect for what he does. He's going to put out a newsletter on the Pauper meta every week. He's doing videos of custom brews, sideboard guides, shorts, active on Twitter, a Pauper merchandise store. All the links to his stuff will be down in the description. Now on to the deck. He came up with Erratic Explosion, threw it together pretty quick. I looked at it, and there's some potential here. Somebody tried to do a meme deck in Modern with Erratic Explosion, but this actually has a little bit of potential. So at the end of the day, it's a burn deck. The only creature in the deck is Rust Goliath. What's that doing? Your goal is to get Erratic Explosion. Let me back up a second. Most important card in the deck is Brainstorm. Brainstorm is going to try to set up Thunder's Wrath, so you can Miracle for 5, and set up Erratic Explosion into Rust Goliath. Erratic Explosion with Rust Goliath on top is dealing 10 damage. Typical burn decks are going to stack a whole lot of damage in the deck. This is a little different. This is setting it up. So you're not really trying to, sequence a whole bunch of cards on one turn. You're picking your spots to get your burn damage in. So one Erratic Explosion that hits a Rust Goliath is 10. A Thunderous Wrath is 5. 2 Thunderous Wraths are 10, which is 20. But it's not always going to work out like that. So you have Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning to get the rest of it done. But the key is you want to play Brainstorm to set up Thunderous Wrath and Rust Goliath. So how you time it, how you sequence it, when you play certain cards, it's very important that you know the deck, what your matchups are, and when to get your burn in. You might be lightning bolting on your opponent's end step. Let's say you have 2 red mana and two islands. It might be lightning bolt on the end step, cast Chain Lightning, Thunderous Explosion, and the Rust Goliath, something like that. But you only had 2 red mana sources. The mana base may not be correct. We first had it with Volatile Fjord only, as red sources need more than that. Added to 2 mountains, may need to add more than that. It only becomes a problem when you start bringing in Pyroblast and you're trying to burn, maybe hit 2 burn spells, and you need counter backup. So the mana base may need some work, but I think you'll like the deck. 18 lands in the mana base, Lorien Reveal, Defetch, Volatile Fjord. I would say you always want to start with, if Volatile Fjord's in hand, you're always leading with it. I almost always lead with a red source, because too often Thunderous Wrath may pop up on the next turn and I don't have a red source to play it. It's not the end of the world when it happens. You can Brainstorm it back in and be fine. But I tend to lead red, especially Volatile Fjord. Counterspell may not be the right choice. It's good right now, but if we add more red to the mana source, then that demand for double blue could be an issue. Maybe it's Prohibit or something like that. But we're going to run it as it is. I went ahead and built the sideboard the way I would do it. I don't think it's perfect. There are certain decks that this deck may be vulnerable to. Anything running life gain is going to be an issue because you're trying to do 20 exactly, maybe 23 to get the job done. Bogles with a Ancestral Mask or something getting life, we can't deal with that, so we need to annul out of the side. Hydroblast for any of the red decks. Pyroblast for counter wars, Echoing Truth to bounce things, Fiery Cannonade if it goes wide. The main thing, you're not really that concerned about what your opponent is doing with board presence and development. You're stopping some threats with counterspell, but it's usually counterspell backup for you on your burn. You're mainly just trying to prevent them from gaining life. So, for example, if your opponent is running Weather the Storm and that resolves, you're pretty much on to the next game. The deck is going to do a certain amount of damage, and if sequenced correctly, if played correctly, can get the job done. We're going to look at a few games. I think it's fun to play. I think it's interesting. One thing I'll say, too, I think Pauper right now has a variety of decks that can win on any given day. And a lot of your success is going to be out of your control because it's going to be very matchup-based dependent. So a lot of decks to choose from. You get the right matchups, you're going to do great. This deck against Gardens does phenomenal. Why? Because there's so many dead cards in Garden's hand. They run so many creature removals, but we're not playing any creatures at all. It's almost a buy, really. So in a Gardens matchup, you're really just looking to prevent weather in game 2 or game 3. Other things like that. We're just going to get into some games. Got some against the meta that I think are pretty good, and I hope you'll like it. Match 1, game 1, unknown opponent. Opening hand. It's great. We'd like to see Ponder, Brainstorm, things like that. We have Erratic Explosion, so at this point, you're always moving to the game plan. You have Erratic Explosion, you need Brainstorm, find the Rust Goliath, put it back on top. We got Volatile Fjord in the opener, some counter spells. It's decent. Let's go. Leading with Volatile Fjord in case we rip a Thunder's Wrath on the next draw. Black could be anything. Likely Gardens, but we'll see. Now at this point, it's a math game, right? It's just math. We've got 9, that's essentially half the total. An Erratic Explosion, if we get lucky, to finish it off. Now we know it's Gardens, and we know this should be a really easy matchup. We're just going to get 3 in right now. I'm not going to dig deeper. We're just going to peck away at his life. The vast majority of cards in his hands should be irrelevant. That was the Thunder's Wrath. Which would be the next one drawn. So as long as he doesn't Reckoner's Bargain something huge, we've got lethal in hand. Lorien to get the next red mana source, bolt on their end step. It's over. Let's go to the next game. Match 1, game 2 against Gardens. Opening hand is decent. Got Ponder to dig, need a red source. It's the only part we don't like about this, but we can get there. It's certainly a keep. Red source will be coming from Lorien. Hope we don't draw an accidental Wrath on the next draw. Right, and the main goal here is just take your time, be patient. It's not your typical burn deck. You're not trying to explode out on turn 3. You're just picking your spots. And we would want to dodge at all costs, weather the storm. We're going to Brainstorm here just to set up Wrath. Get 5 points in while he's tapped out. Leave Counterspell open. No pressure from the opponent. Find the second red source. We're going to brainstorm, and that was Rust Goliath. So we've just set up Erratic Explosion. Rust Goliath will be the card we hit, and that's going to take him to 5. Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt will finish the job. I don't like all the open mana there because I'm kind of thinking Weather the Storm. So we just did 10 damage off of that. And if he can tap out here, we'll bolt on his end step. Yeah, he's only got 1 mana source open now. Don't care about the Monarch because it's game. Just like that. Match 1, game 1, unknown opponent. Match 2, game 1, unknown opponent. Certainly not keepable. That's doable. One thing to keep in mind, I stress this too, on just making a meta call. Your paper meta is going to be different than your online meta, right? Sometimes that can be a little inbred, depending on what tournament that you're playing in. But if the meta game that you expect to face is heavy on creature removal, this particular deck is certainly an option. As you can see here, we're up against Orzhov Ephemerate. So what would we put them on at this? They haven't done anything at the moment. So we would think Journey to Nowhere, Cast Down, different things like that, just sitting in their hand, there's nothing for them to do. So we're just going to be patient, make sure they don't get ahead of us, try to make sure they don't gain a lot of life, keep the counterspell open. It's just a patient game. So we got Bolt, 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 and Chain Lightning. So that's 12. It gets him to 10. And get some burn in when we can. Try to set some things up. We would think they'll probably be trying to hit Paladin. The worst card for us would be Vampire Sovereign with an Ephemerate, because that makes, every time they do that, it's just one more burn spell that we have to find. The O2 drop coffee mug, that's from the David Royale merch store. Check that out, link in the description. Counterspell for backup. And with 6 cards in his hand, I mean, there's some percentage that'll be removal. And he's got some things, right? Threats to deploy. I think he's just playing around counterspell for as long as he can. Yeah, he just cycled Suffocating Fumes twice. Just dead cards for the opponent. We've got nothing. He doesn't know that necessarily. Nope. Not allowing that. So now we just need to hit 10, right? So if we hit a Rust Goliath, that's game, if we can do it, if we can set it up. But we're not going to just cast Erratic Explosion blindly, and not if we can help it. I don't really care about that. I'm more concerned about other Vampire Sovereigns or things like that. Now with Erratic Explosion and Rust Goliath in hand, you're really looking for Brainstorm to set this up. And then we would just need to do 1 more damage. I thought about casting Lorien Revealed, but we just passed on it. There's Brainstorm. So we'll Erratic Explosion, hit the Rust Goliath, and then just look for 1 more burn spell off Ponder, which we find. Chain Lightning, game. There you go. We'll do 1 more. Match 3. Don't know what the opponent's playing. Opening hand. Brainstorm. Thunderous Wrath. Rust Goliath. We'll keep it. We just have to set it up. Leading with red. Volatile Fjord is the best land play on turn 1. Most of the time. up against UB Terror. And the thing I would be most concerned about on Terror is if they get unexpected fangs. Like, that can just get out of control really quickly. I mean, we are burn deck, for sure. So we just don't need them gaining that much life. There's Thunderous Wrath off the top, but I'm going to try to set that. I'd rather get the 10 in off of Erratic Explosion and Brainstorm versus the 5 off Wrath. Another Brainstorm would be fantastic. Not getting it anytime soon, but we can get that in. We just cast it on our main phase rather than to 2 open blue. Spell Pierce open if they want fangs. We've got lethal here. No fangs, which is good. Sure. And now we need just one more damage, right? So you can just cast Erratic Explosion because any card at Find does the last point of damage. So you can cast it blind then when they're at 1 because whatever it hits at a minimum is going to do 1. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the deck. Again, meta call. What's going on in the meta for you? Is the deck playable for you or not? It's a lot of fun to play, but you just have to be strategic in how you sequence. And things go pretty well. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe. Be well.